So let's continue with our SharePoint quick questions and answers video series. The first 5 or 10 sessions of this questions and answers video series, you'll find that there is a lot of theoretical and there is nothing practical happening. The only reason why we are doing so is because we want you to get familiarized and comfortable with some keywords which SharePoint uses and the fundamental of the way SharePoint is architected. Because until you don't understand that, it's very difficult to just start and implementing SharePoint in your project. So what I will suggest is that go through these videos carefully, because these are the terminologies you will be using again and again when you use SharePoint. So let me introduce to question number 5, and let me introduce you to two new terminologies, ghosting and unghosting. So in this session we will answer question number 5. What is the concept of ghosting and unghosting in SharePoint? Right. Now when we talk about SharePoint pages which are stored in the virtual directory, when I say virtual directory which basically uses it basically is a SharePoint website, right? So if the pages so whatever pages are stored in the file system of the SharePoint directory, right, basically in order to understand all of the pages, the way in order to understand these two terminologies, ghosted and unghosted, we need to first understand that how SharePoint parses its ASPX pages. Okay, now there are two types of pages. One page which is stored in the virtual directory of the SharePoint, and the other page which is stored in the database of the SharePoint, that is your content database. We had discussed this previously in the previous question, that SharePoint also has its own database called as content database, and in the content database it basically stores ASPX files source code, which is later parsed by the parsed by SharePoint parser itself, right? So one page code is lying in the virtual directory or your file system, and another page is lying in the database, right? Now if any page which is lying in the file system, right, basically always uses a template. Okay, so any page which is there in your SharePoint web application always uses a template. It can be a master page template, it can be your own custom page template, and what SharePoint does is internally it loads this template only once into memory. Okay, and the differences between the template and the custom pages is applied to the custom page. So what happens is the template is loaded only once. Any custom page which is inheriting from the template, right, and has some changes, what it does is these changes it applies to the custom page. So in this way, this is a very efficient way of working, and also this increases scalability, right? Now this is termed as ghosting, or these pages, the custom page which basically is lying in the virtual directory of SharePoint is termed as ghosted pages. So pages which are loaded from the file system are termed as ghosted pages. Why? Because whenever you store a page into a file system, they basically always inherit from a master page template, must be a custom owned template, and this template differences is applied to the custom pages. So that's why pages loaded from the file system are termed as ghosted pages. Okay, now we talked about the other source where the page is stored, and that is the content database. Now content database basically has two tables. One is a document table and the one is a content table. Now when any client requests for a page, let's say that x.aspx or something, what SharePoint does is it first basically goes to the document table, searches if it has any entry of x.aspx. If it doesn't have any entry of x.aspx, it goes to the virtual directory, takes the page from there, gives it to the ASP.NET runtime, and then displays it to the client. Now if the SharePoint finds an entry into the document table, it then moves towards the content table. From the content table, it loads the source code and gives it to something called as a safe mode parser, which is basically a SharePoint page parser. This is basically a parser made by the SharePoint team to parse ASPX pages. It parses this page, okay, and then sends it to the client, right? So if it is a ghosted page, you will find no entry in the document table and it will use the file system. If it is an unghosted page, you will find an entry into the content database and it will be parsed by the safe mode parser. So in other words, we can say that ghosted pages are stored in the file system and unghosted pages are stored in the content database. The whole point of explaining this theory is to make you understand that how basically SharePoint does its personalization and globalization. We'll come to that later on as we move ahead in the questionnaire. But at this moment, you need to understand that how ghosted and unghosted concepts work in SharePoint.